Hello, here's a story to warm the cockles of your hearts. Pakistani drug dealer can stay in UK to teach son about Islam. The headline appears to be quite shocking, but when you hear the tribunal's reasons for allowing Mr. Karim to stay in the UK, it does sound almost reasonable. When we go through the article, which I shall do, we realise that the tribunal heard evidence that Mr. Karim's conversations with his son are having a beneficial effect on the boy, as, after all, learning about Islam from a drug-dealing illegal migrant will always broaden any child's horizons and keep him on the straight and narrow. And Mr. Karim certainly has spent most of his life in the UK. And after all, any good judicial system absolutely must balance justice with mercy. As we know, this is a characteristic that makes the British judicial system a shining light to all other judicial systems. For instance, to take a recent case when a middle-class housewife, a woman called Mrs. Connolly, although that's not terribly important, who has lived in the UK for most of her life, well, all of it actually, and who has never dealt drugs that kill our citizens and corrupt our youth. In fact, a woman who actually nurtured children for a living. When she made one indiscreet post on X, the judicial system immediately followed its most merciful course of action. And by merciful, I am of course speaking about merciful in the way that Allah is merciful. The judicial system, the most compassionate and the most merciful, took into consideration that Mrs. Connolly has a young daughter who's approaching her teens and probably would benefit from conversations with her mother in exactly the same way as Mr. Karim's son benefits from conversations with him. Oh, and not forgetting the sick husband she was looking after. In fact, the family she was holding together. Well then, the judicial system, of course, would temper justice with mercy, and it's obvious it would decide that, although it considered Mrs. Connolly's ex-post to be somewhat ill-advised, any moral system would come to the conclusion that a stern talking to would be all such a generally law-abiding person as Lucy Connolly would need. Oh, wait. I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And all you YouTube viewers, check that YouTube hasn't done an auto wipe of your subscription. Also, you can contribute to my horseshoe fund with super thanks, PayPal, Subscribestar, or buy me a coffee. And if you like this video, do share it. Okay, so the judgment seems to imply that most of this ruling is for the good of the son, who gave evidence that he benefited from his conversations with his father. And it's all very nice the way the court takes into account the knock-on effect on the next generation of judicially separating a parent from a child. A Pakistani drug dealer has been allowed to remain in the UK because of his role in talking to his son about Islam and his culture. The Home Office ordered the deportation of Mohammed Asif Karim after he amassed 7 convictions for a total of 21 offences, including supplying the Class A drugs heroin and cocaine, for which he served a 4-year jail sentence. 4 years, that's only a sort of year and a half more than the sentence Lucy Connolly got, isn't it? And his drugs, heroin and cocaine, probably ended up killing people. Oh, but that's a detail, isn't it? He won his appeal against his removal after arguing that it would breach his rights to a family life, and the rights to the family life of people who got hooked on the drugs he supplied. Well, let's not talk about that. That's right to a family life under Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which I don't think the British government should actually be signed up for. But there you are, that's just my opinion. An upper tribunal accepted it would be unduly harsh on his son if he was to be deported to Pakistan, even though the child was being largely brought up by his white British mother. So you see, the important thing is that the son is going to suffer because his father is missing from his life. Lucy Connolly's daughter might have had the same argument, but for some reason the judge didn't seem to think that was terribly important. The son gave evidence to the immigration court that his father is able to talk to him about Islam, about Pakistani culture and his own upbringing. The case is the latest example uncovered by The Telegraph in which illegal migrants or convicted foreign criminals have been able to remain in the UK or halt their deportations on human rights grounds. Karim came to the UK, to be fair, it was in 1988 at the age of 7. And he never went back. After his prison sentence for drug dealing, he avoided deportation by becoming a witness in a murder trial. In other words, he grasped on someone. However, he was thrown off a witness protection programme after continuing to offend. So this is a man upon whom I could probably say you can't rely. He lived in the criminal underworld. He got to stay in the country by informing on some of his former associates, if not colleagues. And then after he was on the when he was on the witness protection programme, he continued to earn extra money by indulging in criminal behaviour, which I assume had to do with drug dealing. That is, he was forcing other people to become criminals, because when you take drugs, you're a criminal, and generally speaking, you need to finance your drug habits by indulging in at least petty crime, shoplifting, that sort of thing. So he was what you might call a real asset to British society. He was being looked after in the witness protection programme, and he was corrupting various people with drugs. And yet his heart-to-hearts with his son, they are an overriding consideration. Whereas, as I keep pointing out, Lucy Connolly's relationship with her daughter are just probably on the brink of puberty when she would need a mother's advice, that has not been taken into consideration. It says here he's been suffering from significant and debilitating mental ill health, and although this was not a factor, it's right to note that there's been an inordinate delay over 10 years on the part of the Secretary of State in effecting this deportation. So you see, this is also part of the inefficiency of the British government. Well, not the British government, of course, the Home Office, and not the actual minister, but the people who are employed by the Home Office, the civil servants. I think I heard something quite recently where somebody asked an MP, a Conservative, why didn't you do what you promised? And this MP said, I couldn't. The civil servants were against me all the way. And I believe that. I mean, I think that maybe the various ministers who found themselves stymied by the civil service could have been a little more proactive, but it is much easier to just sit back and let the civil service do things rather than antagonise them. But anyway, yeah, that's it. That's the situation. And that's where we are now. Pakistani drug dealers with mental health problems, they get to stay in the country. But middle-class housewives, carers of a sick husband and the mother of a child who needs her advice, even if it's only about sanitary pads, that's not important. No, bang her up in jail as an example to everyone else. It looks like if you have to make a choice, a life choice, and you have to choose between being a stable middle-class mother who has had the who's had the misfortune to lose a child to the carelessness of the NHS, and make an indiscreet tweet on Facebook or X or whatever, or be a Pakistani drug dealer, then, I should think by now you should have learned which is the best life choice to make. Just a bit of advice. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.